Hi, my name is Kimberly, and this is my suicide story. Before I go much further, I want to explain my connection to Donald. Donald is actually best friends with my husband. Him and Donald, Justin and Donald rode dirt bikes together back in high school, and my husband actually considers Donald one of his brothers. So that's how I'm connected to Donald. They are brothers from another mother, as they like to say. Anyways, let's dive into my suicide story. My dad actually committed suicide, died by suicide when I was a junior in high school. But let me backtrack a little bit from there too. I am the youngest of three. I have two older brothers, and by the time I got to high school, both my brothers were already out of the house. It was my mom and my dad and I. And things were okay. I was a high schooler, I was living the dream. I was in marching band, I had good grades, and things were going great. My dad was in the military growing up, and he loved being in the military. It was something he did well. He was a really good soldier. And then he retired. And to this day, I don't really know why he retired when he did, but he retired when I was a middle schooler. And that transition for him didn't go well. He struggled transitioning to being a civilian. He went from being a high rank where everybody listened to him and he had a lot of authority to not. And he started bouncing from job to job. He was a mail carrier at one point. I don't even know, he had a lot of jobs. And now looking back, I think that was a red flag. But when you're a middle schooler and you're a high schooler, you don't really notice things with your parents as much. And so things kind of started to go from downhill for him. He was in jobs he didn't care about, and he wasn't being listened to, and he struggled with that. And so he started drinking. He kind of always had a drinking problem. He grew up in a home where both of his parents drank. It was an expectation that they had of him when he got home from school, that it was his responsibility to make them drinks when he got home from school. And so he had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol from as early as he can remember. But when he lost his purpose after he got out of the military, he decided that he would climb into the bottle. And that did not go so well for him and for us. And so into my sophomore year of high school, he started drinking more and more and more. And then in February of my sophomore year, we got the phone call that my grandpa had heart failure and that it didn't look like he was going to live very long. And so my dad hopped on the first plane out to Wisconsin and was there for my grandpa's final days, brought my grandpa home to die at home. And I thought my dad handled that really well. I thought that losing his last parent, he did great. He didn't seem sad to me at all. But what I didn't realize was that he was internalizing his pain, and he was coping with his pain very, very differently. He was hiding his pain. So in February, we buried my grandpa, and my dad tied up all my grandpa's loose ends, which included bringing home all of my grandpa's guns. My grandpa was a gun collector. This is important to the story. Here in a little bit, you'll find out. But my dad brought home all of my grandpa's guns, and life continued as normal, I thought. But my dad kept drinking. And when my dad drank, he got more and more angry. And he turned into a person that it was hard to recognize and it was hard to love. And so at the end of my sophomore year of high school, my mom, with a lot of encouragement from me, asked my dad to leave, asked my dad to no longer live in our house because it was no longer a safe environment for us. And it was my mom's primary goal to make sure that I was being raised in an environment that was safe. And so my dad, he willingly left. He packed up a suitcase and he found an apartment. And there he went. And my mom's only stipulation was that he had to quit drinking. And he continued to say that he didn't have a drinking problem, which was hurtful and kind of a little bit of a slap in the face because we didn't understand how he couldn't see what we saw. Fast forward a little bit further, things are kind of setting into a new normal. My dad has an apartment on kind of the middle part of town, and I see him, in public places. I don't go to his apartment. He's not allowed to come to our home, and things are going okay. And then my dad files for divorce. And I remember that really hurt my mom. She couldn't see what was happening. She couldn't see, and the only rule was that he had to quit drinking. We couldn't see what was lying deeper. And so we launch into my junior year. Both my parents now have attorneys, and there is setting in to be a pretty nasty divorce. And they're only talking to each other through attorneys. There's talk of custody agreements because I'm still a minor at that point. Both my brothers are much older than I am, and we're adults. So I was kind of the only remaining asset that they could really fight over. And so it was about me. And so there was just talk about what was going to happen with me. So we get now, we're into September, into October, and it's homecoming weekend. And not only is it homecoming weekend, it's my birthday weekend, and I'm excited. I have been picked to sing the national anthem at the homecoming pep rally assembly, and it's the marching band is set to do a really awesome marching band season set at the homecoming football game that night. And the next day, I was gonna have all my friends spend the night that night after the football game, and then the next day we're going to dinner or an early lunch as a family at Red Robin, and then we were all getting our hair done together for the homecoming dance, and then all going to ride in a limo to homecoming, and it's my birthday weekend, and so junior girl's dream come true, right? And so this was the plan, and I'm a planner, and so I knew that this is what was coming, and so I still wanted my dad to be a part of it, and so I had called him on Tuesday, and I was like, Dad, here's the deal. Here's what's up. We're gonna do this and this and this and this. I'm singing the national anthem at the homecoming pep rally assembly. I would love for you to come and see me sing. We're then, doing our homecoming marching band. Sean, my brother, is gonna be coming down because we always let past marching band people come and play in the marching band. And so Sean's going to be coming down from college. So, you know, you're more than welcome to come to the game and see Sean and I march together in the marching band. And then, you know, the next day, you know, please come to lunch. You know, all of us, the family, we're going to go to lunch. But here's all the rules. Like, you're not allowed to show up to any of these events drunk. I don't want to smell alcohol. I said all my rules. And then I was like, and then, you know, we're all going to the dance together. The limo's going to be at the house at this time. Just, you know, you're welcome to come and take pictures. Again, but like, please be respectful of Mom. And I laid out all my rules. And he said, okay. And he was going to be there for all of it. Like, he promised me he was going to be there for all of it. And then he was like, just to verify, you want a guitar, right? That's what you want for your birthday? And I was like, yeah, I want to learn how to play guitar. And so I was like, okay, great. I was like, I love you, Dad. I'll see you Friday. And he was like, I love you too. I'll see you Friday. And I think that I am the last person that had spoke to my dad. So Friday rolls around, and it's our homecoming assembly, and it's a shortened schedule because of the pep rally, and we're just about an hour from the pep rally, like 6th period, and I'm in chemistry. And it's funny how in events like this, like, you remember every detail so clearly. So I'm sitting in chemistry, I'm in the front row, and in walks the principal, the vice principal, my guidance counselor, another guidance counselor, and the school resource officer. And they say to my chemistry teacher, and they say, we need Kimberly to come with us. And kind of, it's funny now looking back, like, the guts of my chemistry teacher, because she was like, no, she's in the middle of a quiz, can it wait? And they were like, no, like, it can't wait. Like, she needs to come with us. And like, I'm sitting there like, what do? Like, I got the principal, the vice principal, and like, I was not necessarily the most the greatest kid in school, but like, I could not believe that, like, principal, vice principal, guidance counselor, school resource officer, like, they're in there for me. So they asked her again. They're like, no, seriously, she needs to come with us. And so again, she was like, all right, I guess, Kimberly, pack up your stuff, like, you gotta go. So I put all my stuff in my book bag, and I walk out the door, and we start walking down the hallway. And they were like, do you need to stop by your locker? And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm just gonna go to one of your guys' offices. Like, what, 20 minutes? Like, what should this be? And they're like, no, you're leaving school property. So we need you to grab anything that you're gonna need for the rest of the weekend, because you're not gonna be back in school property this weekend. And I was like, say what? Like, you're mistaken. I'm not doing that. And they were like, yeah, you're leaving school property, so we're gonna need you to stop by your locker and grab anything you need for the weekend. At which point I started arguing with them, because I decided that I was not leaving school property until they told me why. And so at that point, my guidance counselor said, something has happened with your parents' divorce, and you're needed downtown. And I knew that downtown was where both of my parents' attorney's offices were, and it's also where the courthouse was. And so in my head, I was like, my mom would have told me if something was happening today with the trial, like with the custody, with the divorce. Like, clearly that's not a detail they forget to tell you on homecoming weekend and your birthday. Like, my mom would have told me. So initially my brain jumped to, my dad is doing something fishy. And so I said, nope, I'm not going. My mom would have told me this morning when I was getting ready for school that we had a court thing today. I have my driver's license. She would have told me that, you know, I needed to be pulled out by a certain time to report downtown by a certain time. And I was like, so this is fishy, and I'm not going. And they were like, no, you're going. So I proceeded to argue with them. And so finally the guidance counselor pulls out his cell phone, and he calls my mom, and all my mom says on the phone is, Kimberly, you're getting in the car with them and you're gonna go downtown. Do not ask any more questions. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going downtown. And at that point I could tell by the way that she said that to me, like I knew something was wrong, but because she was in on it, I knew it was safe. So I got in the car. It was the 2 guidance counselors and the school resource officer, and they drove me downtown. And we pull up to my mom's attorney's office, and I can see through the glass window, and it's my mom sitting there, and she's with her 2 best friends. And then I can also see my oldest brother standing kind of off in the room. And at that point, like I knew something really bad had happened. So I go to get out of the car, and I was like, are you guys coming with me? And they said, no, we're just here to drop you off, and we're gonna go talk to all your teachers. And I was like, what do you have to talk to my teachers about? And they were like, you'll figure it out. You know, we'll see you back when you're ready. And that's all they said. So I was like, all right. So I got out of the car and I went into the attorney's office, and my mom was like, Kimberly, can you come sit on my lap? And I was like, Mom, I'm 17 today. Like, seriously? Really? And she was like, just, can you stop? Can you come sit on my lap? And so I was like, okay. So I went and I sat on her lap, and she said, Kimberly, your dad died this morning. I said, what? Like a heart attack? Like did his liver go out? You know, like what? And she's like, no, honey, your dad took his life this morning. And I didn't know how to process that. So I sat there in silence for, I don't know how long. And then I said, I need you to say it again. And she said, your dad took his life this morning. And the next thing I could say was, but it's my birthday. And I'll never forget the sound that came out of my mom's self, out of her person. It was a wailing, a crying that I've never heard her do. And the news of her being told she had forgotten what the weekend was to me. What we now know, what has happened since then, is that I talked to him on that Tuesday, and he was in such a deep, dark depression that he didn't go to work on that Wednesday, that Thursday, or that Friday. And late Thursday night, he emailed a suicide note to his buddy in hopes that his buddy would wake up to find it on Friday morning. What my dad didn't realize was that his buddy was awake when he sent that email. So the email was sent, and he opened it, saw what it was, drove over to my dad's apartment, knocked on my dad's door, and heard the gunshot. He immediately called 911, but by the time the paramedics and law enforcement arrived and they got the door open, my dad was already dead. My dad died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. It was discovered that his body was found with my birthday present. This past year was an interesting milestone for me. This year it was 17, so I officially lived 17 years with him and 17 years without him. And that's an interesting place to be. And when I initially found out that Donald was doing this series, I kind of jumped on like, yeah, I want to talk about it, because there's a lot of things I've learned in those 17 years. And I think one of the most interesting things I want to learn is that when you lose a loved one to suicide, you almost, the questions that people ask, it took me a while to get used to that. It also took me a while to get used to the fact of people's, I don't know, sympathy or like, I can't think of the right word, but it's almost like when you hear someone and they say, oh, I've lost a loved one to a heart attack, or I've lost a loved one to cancer. You get like the, oh, I'm so sorry. But when you lose someone to suicide, there's the, oh, I'm so sorry, but they have this curiosity to them. I can't tell you the number of times I've been asked, like, well, how did you do it? Nobody asks what type of cancer somebody died from, or very rarely. And so that's been an interesting turn of events. I've also had to experience like the making someone feel better, because I know the moment that I say that my dad died by suicide, that person's not gonna know what to say to me. And so I have to have the instant response to make that person feel better for not knowing what to say to me. And that's taken me like 17 years to get used to. Because initially I was like, why is there this like awkward conversation? And it's because suicide in our culture still is such a taboo topic that when you tell someone that you had a loved one die by suicide, no one knows what to say to you. And that's why I wanted to come on and talk, because it shouldn't have to be this, when your loved one dies by suicide, it shouldn't be our responsibility to try to make you feel better about that. The other thing that I've learned is that when my dad died by suicide, I, even to this day, feel so much guilt in that. And I've gone through a lot of counseling and I've done a lot of work to let a lot of that go. But I still carry some of it, and I still think I always will. And I know I can speak for some of my family members that also feel some of that guilt. And what's also interesting is I think suicide is one of the only deaths that feel that. Like, again, if you have a loved one that dies by a heart attack or dies by cancer, their family members most often don't say, oh, I wish I would have not given them that cheeseburger that last time. Or I wish I would have taken them on one more walk so that they would have maybe lost 10 pounds. Nobody carries that guilt with them. Nobody carries that shame with them. They're just like, oh, yep, they died of a heart attack. Like, they should have been in better health. Like, nobody transfers their death guilt onto them. But for some reason, in suicide, we transfer all of that guilt and shame onto us. Well, maybe if when I called him on that last Tuesday, if I would have been nicer, if I would have not given him all those rules, if I would have helped him better, if I would have been a better daughter, if I would have had better grades, if I would have filled in the blank. But that can't be what we do and what it is. See, it's taken me a long time to learn that my dad's suicide can't be on me. I was a kid. But here's what I do know. That I can use my dad's suicide to help other people. When I found out about Donald's dad dying by suicide, when we got that phone call or that text message, I don't even remember what it was, but I almost instantly knew the pain in his heart. And it's a pain that you don't know what it feels like until you've lived it. And it was in that moment that my pain started to make a little bit more sense. And so that's why I think what Donald is doing in this, it really matters. If you are a person that is in a dark place and you have been thinking about suicide, know that you have friends and you have family that love you and care about you. And your pain will just transfer to them and they will blame themselves forever. Reach out to them. Ask for help. And know that the darkness you are in does not last forever. I wish my dad were here. I wish that he was here to see my wedding day and to see the birth of my son. And we're in the process of adopting a baby, and I wish he were here to see our newborn again. But he was in so much darkness and he had so much pain that he felt that that was his only way out. And I wish that we could have broken through to him to show him there was a better way. That there's a light in the darkness and that the world needed him. I wish I didn't have to have a suicide survival story. But I'm glad that I do, because it can help others and I can walk with others in their darkness.